Well, good evening to all of you on this late evening on Christmas Eve. I hope this is a good time for you because it's one of my favorite times of the year. I cherish the time that we start at midday for our first service through the afternoon into the evening and well on to my solitary drive home about 1:30 this evening. It really is my favorite time of the year. I really cherish it because you see all the Christmas shopping is over and the busyness and the running, all the preparations, and now it's time just to sit back, catch our breath, breathe deeply, think a bit, sit calmly, and really try to enjoy what this season is all about. And I hope you can do that for yourself tonight. Really let all those things that ramble around in our heads, the things that distract us and pull us, let them go for a bit. And really sit in the deep meaning of what this season brings us. And as you relax, I have, I think, the best Christmas story I've ever heard for you. A few years ago, a young man drifted into town right before Christmas. His name was Tim. He's 19 years old. His story is a tough one. He had been in foster care for all of his life. He had never been with his family. He did not know his family. He'd never spent many months at one time in any one foster home. He was never really mistreated, but he just moved continually throughout his life. And then at 18, as happens, he was of age, and so he was free from the system. And he really wanted freedom, and so he took off. And unfortunately, in a very short time, without much skill or education, he was on the street. And then his life fell into the pattern, well, of what the street brings. And he ended up in Knoxville after traveling a bit. He got here right before Christmas. And he connected with our volunteer ministry center, which was great. It's really great. People got to know him. Handsome young man, bright, articulate, but lost in many ways, had a hard time on the street. And he'd not been here but a short time that he heard about this thing called the Holiday Store. You know what that is? Our volunteer ministry does the most incredible ministry. They put together jobs for people, for street folks, homeless folks, many of our poor and working poor, who can come in and do a job. And they don't get paid, but they earn service hours. And with those hours, then at the end, right before Christmas, they can go into this wonderful warehouse where the Volunteer Ministry Center has gotten people to donate all kind of items of gifts and toys, and they can buy their own Christmas for themselves and for the people they love. Just a great, everybody feels good about it. They feel good. They've earned it. It's just a win all the way around. Well, Tim was captured by the idea and immediately started signing up for work. And these were hard jobs. They're jobs that St. John's and other churches and other businesses downtown provide. And I promise you, they're tough jobs. It's cleaning up stuff, the things that nobody else wants to do at the end of the year. And Tim didn't matter. He jumped right into every job. The report back was he was always punctual there. And one thing he did, every time he got off the job, he went back to the Volunteer Ministry Center to make sure that they had counted exactly the number of hours he had worked. He was specific. He wanted to know that they had him right. Well, the weeks went along, and then right up to the Friday before Christmas, everybody showed up to turn in their hours, to account for their hours. He showed up. He got it. He went into the warehouse to get his gifts, and he went in. And Jenny Weatherstone, our executive who's soon to retire, had gotten to know Tim, and she watched him. He made a beeline straight for the toys. And she thought that was strange, and he went over and he got a great big doll. Well, she couldn't help herself. She went over and she said, Tim, she said, I really know your story and you've worked so hard and you've done all of this. You know, you don't have a family, but you've done all this work to get a doll. And he kind of put his head down. And then he looked up at her and he put his hand in his pocket and he pulled out an angel tree tag from the mall. And he said, Jenny, I don't have a family. But working like this and buying this doll has given me Christmas. And I know I will never know this little girl. I will never meet her. But I know that when she gets this doll, she too will have Christmas. You know, like Tim, all of our preparations are the same. actually. Our shopping, our running, our buying, our mailing, our shipping, our decorating, our entertaining. We are all trying to do what Tim was doing. And that is to attempt to get ourselves into that place that we call the Christmas spirit. And don't you want it? I do. The older I get, I think the more desperately I want it year to year, because it means more for me. It is that place we know where we really do want the happiness and joy of the season to creep into our lives. We want the nostalgia of past times of the people we've known and loved to come back into our memories, into our consciousness. And just the people we are acquainted with, we want to even get more deeply acquainted with. I'm not so alone. All of us are that way. We want this for ourselves. We want wholeness and healing in our relationships. We want to stay connected and get better connected in our family and our friendships. You see, all those things we're doing, we're trying to do them right. And we work harder and harder to do them right so that things will be just right. Because that's how we think we will get the Christmas spirit. If we'll do it just right, do it perfectly, I will get it this year. But maybe tonight you can pause and think just a little differently for a moment. Maybe it is the smallest thing that you have done. Maybe actually it's the most and the least significant for you and the most insignificant thing that you have done that will connect you. Maybe is actually the most anonymous thing that you have done that will connect you to this Christmas spirit. And when you get connected, someone else will benefit and be connected as well. You see, maybe that is what God had in mind all along when He gave us this angel tree gift of Jesus Christ, because that's exactly what it was. The God of the universe, who's been about the business and busyness of making and doing and ordering and shaping. Do you understand His ultimate act is in this small gift giving? This small gift giving of a baby in a manger. You see, even for God, it is not about the things that He has done or made. That is not the point. We are given a model of life. It is about the baby. It is about the baby. This small relationship of a baby with the world and the world with a baby, that is what makes the Christmas spirit come into our lives. That is what gives hope to the world. And that is what gives Christmas its deepest and richest meaning for every one of us. And I think at some level we know it. We're not sure what to do. But it did provoke and kind of drive a person like us. Her name is Brenda Dingwall. She lives in a city not far away. She's an Episcopalian. She goes to St. Raphael's Church in her city. And she decided, well, it was last week, the week before Christmas, that she wanted to do something to try to get into that place of, well, she was missing something, needed something significant. So she joined with some parishioners, and they were going to their mission to cook lunch. And she didn't really have the time. She really didn't have all of her things done for Christmas. But some intuition told her to do it. It was the right thing. And this year, her son, she's the mother of 2 boys, her oldest, Alex, who is 6, could go with her. So that made it even better. So she and Alex piled in the car, went down to the mission, jumped right in, started making spaghetti sauce, getting the noodles out. But it wasn't long before Alex was the only child in the kitchen and grew bored. So what he did is he went out front. And so he went out and started setting tables and everything. And about that time, all the neighbors started coming in. And it was those fresh in their addiction, the disabled, the mentally ill, those who smelled bad and were dressed even worse, especially for the winter weather. But Alex, you see, he's a child. He still has that childlike wonder, and it didn't matter to him. The condition of these folks didn't bother him at all, and he greeted every one of them cheerfully, and you could tell it made a difference in the spirit in the room. But then he looked up and saw something he couldn't quite process. He saw a little boy with his mother. among all these disheveled adults. And he ran to the back and he told his mom, "Mom, there's a little boy out there and I think he's about my age." And she said, "Well, that's okay." She said, "I tell you what, when they come through the line, why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe he'll play with you or something while he's here." So he thought about that. And so the line started coming, people started coming through. And Brenda, the mom, was watching out for this other mother. And she saw her coming. And when she came up, she realized she didn't have a child. She didn't have a little boy with her. And she said, "I don't mean to be forward," but she said, "Don't you have a little boy?" And she said, "Yes," but she said, I really only need one plate of food." And she said, No, we have plenty." She said, No, that's not it. She said, "My little boy, Darius, well, let me tell you what happened." She said, "My husband, well, he beat us again, and we had to run from him. And we left the house. We took nothing with us. We have nothing. We ran to the mission. We have no idea where we're going to be. And Darius he's traumatized. He has no idea. Everything is frightful, even coming here for this meal. And he's so afraid he won't come and eat." And Alex spoke up and said, "Mom, could I ask him if he would eat with me?" So Alex went outside the kitchen, went out front, got Darius and brought him back to the back, and did what children do. He made a peanut butter sandwich for each of them, got some potato chips, and they sat on the floor. And they ate together, and Darius didn't say much. Alex talked a bit. But after a bit, Darius was noticing Alex's shoes, and he kind of pointed at them. And Alex said, "Yeah, they're cool, aren't they? They're those Power Ranger shoes. You know the ones? Some of you have had to buy them. They're orange and green and black, and they're pretty ugly. But they've got the lights on them. When you bounce, they light up." Well, he walked up and down, and Darius was smiling, and he said, "Aren't these cool?" He said, "Darius, I got these as an early Christmas present from my mom. Maybe your mother will get you some." Well, things went on. Darius went back with his mom because they were singing carols, and they were going to give out gifts. And then Alex went back to his mom back in the back and said, "Darius is a nice boy. We sat and talked to him. He said, he really likes my sneakers. He really likes my shoes. And I told him maybe his mom would get some for him." All you parents, it was a great teaching moment. And she said, "Alex, I need to talk to you about something." And then she slowly tried to explain their situation and said, "This is the Christmas they will have. They're in a hard place." And she said, "They're safe here," but she went on and talked him through it. And when she was through, she said, "They don't have any money. His mom can't buy anything." And Alex was a little stunned by that. He was a little too much. And he said, "Oh," and kind of like that. Well, the group went on, finished up. Everyone ate. They cleaned up, washed everything. And when they got about packing up time, Brenda started looking for Alex and saw him flittering back and forth. And finally she yelled at him and said, "Come on, it's time to go." When he ran up to her, she said, "Wasn't this fabulous? Wasn't this exactly what we needed?" And she said, "Haven't you had fun?" She said, "Come on, I'll help you with your coat." She started to put her coat on him, and she looked down, and he was in his socks. And she didn't say a thing. She walked him to the car. They got in. They started driving down the road, and she drives one of those big mommy SUVs like I drive anyway. And you have to, if you want to see a little person in the back seat, you have to adjust the mirror. So she's doing this, popping the mirror down. And Alex says, "Mama, what are you looking at?" She says, "Nothing, sweetheart. I'm just looking at you." And there was Alex in the back seat with a pretty good smile on his face. And whatever it looks like, it's like that 6-year-old sense of satisfaction. I imagine that that's what God looked like tonight and into the next morning if I projected us onto God's image. If God were a human, he had a smile on his face and a deep sense of satisfaction about the birth of this child. I hope that this season you will find something joyful, happy, pleasurable, relaxing for you and the people around you. And I pray that you will find a sense of that smile and satisfaction, not just on your face, but in your life somewhere deeply embedded in your life, and that each of you will find that Christmas spirit that is real, that is with us, that you will find it in your heart, but you'll also find it in your homes. Merry Christmas. Amen.